Shalom, and welcome back to B'nai Noach Academy, Thoughts on Life. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this wisdom and inspiration with friends and family. So I want to take this opportunity to respond to a very intriguing question that was posted on one of the comments on one of our previous classes, and I'll read it out loud and then respond to it. Rabbi, a little off topic, but how do you know when God has decided to make a person great? I'm asking from a Jewish perspective, is there signs? I know the term great, quote unquote, is relative, but I was just curious about this. So here is some perspective. I can't tell you that I have a conclusive answer or that 3 or 4 minutes can justify this, question and really answer it thoroughly. However, I want you to think from it from this following perspective. Number one, I would say God made every single human being great. By virtue of the fact that God says that he created the human being in the image of God, which means that we all have an abundant, almost infinite amount of qualities and abilities, that in itself tells us that we're all great. Moreover, I want you to think of it. Even when a person doesn't have overt, visible greatness, let's take, for example, people who are unfortunately handicapped, people who are ill, infirm, or as society says, they don't have a quality of life. They're not able to be productive as we would imagine. Are they any less human? Are you allowed to do away with them? No. I mean, there are people, unfortunately, and it's unfortunately even growing this sentiment among some people in society today, that for some reason, when somebody doesn't have a quality of life, you can kill them, and it's justified in their minds. You can interfere with God's plans, but that's not true. Every human being is great. Every human being has a purpose. God says so. So my point is that every human being is great. However, if I were to really address the question that was asked here, I think what the person was asking is, we do find out there are people who are great, like leaders and so on. So perhaps think of it this way. There's a famous adage that says, a leader is born, not made. Usually, typically, people are born to be what they are. I'm talking about in terms of greatness, leadership, and so on. Yes, that does not in any way conclusively decide for the person what the person is going to do with it. The fact is that a person has free choice, and we've seen many people that were born leaders, and they did phenomenally good things with it, bringing freedom and bringing goodwill to others. And then there were people who did exactly the opposite. People who, because of their leadership skills, they brought demise and suffering and corruption on the heads of so many millions of people, and death even, okay? So the fact that somebody has born leadership qualities doesn't necessarily determine what they're going to do with it, if they're going to actually indeed use it for great things, or God forbid, the opposite. And now another perspective. I believe that if somebody isn't truly great, you don't need God to, so to speak, come down from the heavens and tell it to you. Usually, or typically, you know it, you appreciate it, you understand it. And this brings to mind a true story, an anecdote that took place about 130, 140 years ago, where there was a rabbi of a Hasidic dynasty who had passed on, and his son, typically, it runs, the lineage, the dynasty runs within the family. His son, however, was not accepted, was not embraced by the father's followers. In other words, he expected to succeed his father, but unfortunately, they did not accept him as their leader. So he went around lobbying by various other Hasidic masters and great rabbis to get their support somehow to convince the community to embrace him, to receive him as their leader. When he came to the Chabad, to the 5th Chabad Rebbe, and he told the Rebbe that he had a dream, and in his dream, his father, his deceased father, came to him and instructed him, encouraged him to take over the reins, to lead his followers, to succeed him. So he's asking the Chabad Rebbe for his assistance, for his support. So the Rebbe said to him, why doesn't your father come in a dream to all his followers to tell them to embrace you? In other words, he smelled a rat, and he really quickly got his number, and he understood what's going on over here. You cannot become a leader. You cannot be a leader unless the people accept you. The only exception to that, of course, is when people initially accept you and then they see your true colors, and it's too late, because now with an oppressive hand, you force your leadership on them. Like we know the communists did, and so on and so forth. But we're talking about in normal circumstances. In order for one to be a leader, the people need to recognize it. The people need to feel it. The people will feel it if indeed that's their true leader. So that's just some thought, some perspective, so to give you some idea. And I would invite you to process it in your own mind, and please share your comments. Tell me what conclusions you came to.